So my name is Tobiloba Ajayi and I live with cerebral palsy. Let's just get that out of the way. Alright, so I'm a disability management advocate and I run an organization called the Let Cerebral Palsy Kids Learn Foundation. As the name suggests, we're an organization that promotes inclusive education for children with cerebral palsy. And what does inclusive education mean? Just in case I was about to confuse you. Inclusive education basically means that children with cerebral palsy attend the same schools that they will have attended in age-appropriate general education classrooms alongside their typical peers as if they did not have cerebral palsy, where supports and services are provided for those children and their teachers in those classrooms. So you're not taking the child out to the support, you're bringing the support to the child, and they are fully participating members of the school community in all activities, including extracurricular activities like sports and clubs and all those other things. So the organization is almost 6 years old, and in the 6 years that we've been in existence, we have directly impacted over 530 families, and we've enabled over 110 families to access inclusive education. We have trained over 600 teachers to address the knowledge and skill gap of teachers to teach children with cerebral palsy in their mainstream classrooms alongside their typical peers. And we continue to do the work to support parents and schools so that they're able to give children with cerebral palsy the education that they need to be full-fledged. I literally popped out of my mother's womb and they already knew that I was going to have problems. They just were not sure what the problem was going to be, because I popped out of my mother's womb weighing 1.1 kg and my mother was 29 weeks pregnant. So yeah, 29 weeks pregnant, and I was weighing 1.1 kg and then I popped out. So the doctors already knew that we have a problem. This baby is too small, as babies too early. They didn't think I was going to make it home, but when I then did, they already told my parents to expect problems. They weren't just sure what the problems were going to be. And then when it popped out and I wasn't meeting my motor skills and meeting all my milestones, and my mom took me back to the hospital, they were like, well, yeah, we kind of told you to expect this thing. So, mommy, welcome to the club. Your child has cerebral palsy. You know the drill. It's lifelong. We can't cure it. Therapy will help, but we can't be sure that she will ever be able to do all of these things. Cerebral palsy, just in case you don't know what it is the most common childhood onset, lifelong physical disability in the world that affects over 70 million people worldwide and over 2 million people in Nigeria. So it is not a rare condition. Of every 100 children that's born in Nigeria today, one of them will be diagnosed with cerebral palsy. So if you are raising a child with cerebral palsy, you're not alone. So what are the signs and symptoms of cerebral palsy in children? You will notice issues with muscle coordination. There is no child with cerebral palsy that does not have issues with muscles. And because cerebral palsy is a disorder of movement and posture, there will be issues around being able to, sometimes things like gross motor skills like sitting, neck control, standing, being able to use their hands. Children with cerebral palsy, some of them will have difficulties with speech, so don't assume that everybody with cerebral palsy will speak like me. And you can also have difficulties with anything that can be controlled by muscles. So I'm talking something as simple as being able to blink, being able to fart, being able to go to the toilet can all be affected by cerebral palsy, including digestion. So it's a very interesting condition. If you line up 15 children with cerebral palsy right now, you'll see 15 different things. They will all look different. They all need different interventions, and so you might be a bit confused. But don't worry, it's a spectrum disorder, which means that it varies in people. The way that it presents in person A is not the way it presents in person B. So if your child has been diagnosed with cerebral palsy, what do you do? First thing, head back to the hospital and get started in what is called early intervention services. This will look like being referred to physiotherapy, occupational therapy, and speech therapy, especially if you end up in a general hospital in Nigeria. Now, listen, therapy does not cure your child. So don't tell me that, oh, I'll be going to therapy for 6 months and my child is not working. Listen, therapy does not cure your child. It does two things. It improves and it maintains. So therapy can help your child improve on the skills they don't have, and it can make sure that the ones they don't have, they don't lose. Now, for some children, they are going to get to a point where they will play too, which means that they're not going to gain any more skills. But that does not mean that they stop therapy, because if they stop therapy, then they stand the risk of losing the skills that they've already gained. So sometimes the whole focus of the therapy that you're doing with your child is maintenance, and that's good enough, because trust me, you do not want to see your child lose the skills they already have. Now, all right, so my child has been diagnosed with cerebral palsy. We've been going to clinic. My child is still not sitting. My child is already school age. What do? You send your child to school. I know it sounds counterintuitive. This child is not talking. This child cannot sit down. This child cannot hold pencil. I said I sent child to school. Yes, because the purpose of education is not passing exams, it is learning. And your child needs basic literacy and numeracy skills to live independent lives when you're no longer here. So the earlier that you get them into the education system so that they can learn the skills, the better. Listen, your child does not need to be able to sit independently to go to school. They don't need to be able to talk to go to school. They don't even need to be able to hold the pencil to go to school. Don't worry. You can, you can DM me for further details around that. What next? How did I get here? Because people ask this question all the time. You see, my parents need all of these things that I'm telling you about. They got me into early intervention. They got me into school early. They provided safety nets so that I could access the education system. So what does safety nets look like? For instance, when I was going to school in this country, a lot of schools had plenty stairs, which meant I could not have climbed those stairs on my own. My mom spent years backing me into the classroom and putting me on the seat. I remember that back in the day, all these fancy chairs and tables that exist in schools did not exist. It was just benches, long benches, and long seats. And so my mom would take me to school with throw pillows so she could support my back and my sides with throw pillows so that I wouldn't fall out of the tall bench. You see, these were the kind of simple safety nets that my parents put in place so that I could be in the same educational settings as my peers and succeed there. The other thing that they did, I remember that in my early years, was that I had what is today called a facilitator, was back in the day called a support staff. I had a support staff that was assigned to me to ensure that I was able to eat. So she was one that fed me, she was one that took me to the toilet, and she was one that held my hand so I could scribble and do sand and water play with my peers. In a few years, I told her to get lost, that I could now do my things by myself, and she was happy to do so. Also, set really high goals for your children. I always say set stupidly high goals, as in goals that you know by yourself that they are not even going to realistically not meet. You know why? The higher that you set the goals, the higher that they try. If you set low ball goals, then you've put a lead on what is possible for them. But when you set incredibly high goals, then they begin to think nothing is impossible, and then they begin to aim towards it, and somehow nothing is actually then impossible for them. Also, be very careful about the language you use around your child. The use of the word can't is something that you want to avoid. So instead of saying my child can't walk, a better way to say it is my child doesn't walk yet. Because when you say my child can't walk, what you're saying is that it's probably a skill they will never be able to master. So it doesn't give them a reason to even want to master the skill. But when you say my child doesn't walk yet, it basically says that you have till a certain amount of time to master the skill. Whether or not they master the skill is not the point. The point is the mindset that it creates in how they think about themselves and their lives going forward. Because you want your own home to be the place where they are most validated and the biggest and highest expectations are set on them. Because society is going to set really low expectations of them, and they need to be able to counteract that. Okay, yes. What can I do to help my child at home if I cannot take my child to the clinic, because the clinic is too far from my house? I hear this all the time from parents. Listen, there's so many things that you can do depending on what skills you're trying to master in your child. I know that the one that is usually the most important to parents is fine motor skills. I want my child to be able to use their hands. Okay, mommy. Do you by any chance have flowers in your compound? If you don't, because all of you have completed your entire house, do you know where they sell ewedu? In the market. Please, you will need to do some investment in ewedu purchase. I would advise that you buy the ones with the very tiny leaves, and then you begin to do a hand over hand exercise with your child to pluck the leaves. As you do that, you're teaching them to put their two pincer fingers together and use it. The more that you do that practice, the more that you're learning to use their fingers. Well, for more details, you know where to find me.